Destroy my childhood, ruin my chance at college, and laugh when I said I was homeless? I'll ruin your life. Backstory: my mother was a really bad person. I have 4 other siblings. 1 older sister, 3 way younger, 3 different dads. Before I was born, I'm a male by the way, my oldest sister was taken away from my mother when she was a few months old because she tried to stab the father of my sister while he was holding her. She lost custody and the dude left her. Older sister goes to live with her father's family in a different city. Lil me coming into this sexy world. My dad went to jail 2 to 3 years after I was born for a while. I rarely saw him. He's an alcoholic if that matters. She was a single mother but she made it work and she worked hard. One of the bigger problems was that she took out all her aggression and hatred of my father on me as well as work stress and etc. She dealt with sexual abuse growing up which I'm sure definitely affected her relationships and how she treated me as well. Anyways. Cue me being abused from the age of 4 to 5 to about 17. Every day was hell. She was extremely strict and her perspective was warped. She was also pretty big in stature and had a lot of strength. Examples of her being evil. I've gotten beaten up badly once because her room was dirty. The dishes weren't washed and I got beaten soon as I got home, even if there weren't dishes when I left to school. If I walked too loud, I'd get my butt beat. She broke my nose for looking at her the wrong way on my 10th birthday when she brought me a cake I was allergic to. It had peanuts. She knows I'm slightly allergic but feigned ignorance. It was more or less every day or every other day. She used her fists, elbows, extension cords, hangers, chairs, canes, bats, etc. Whatever she could find I was getting beaten with. I couldn't ever escape to my room for long because she would always call me every few minutes to get her things or to yell at me. She never drank or did drugs or anything. Whenever she was upset and I happened to be in front of her, she'd kick me down the stairs to make me hurry up. She's put a knife to my neck before and had to be forcibly stopped by her boyfriend of the time. She burned my Christmas presents from other people, she didn't get me anything that year, and just other really bad things. The only thing I will say, she tried really hard to make up for it with video games and electronics and etc. It didn't make a difference to me though, it never helped. She controlled most aspects of my life. I got by with little petty revenges. Peeing in the Lipton iced tea she drank. Rubbing her forks and spoons between my butt cheeks before I served her dinner. Ignoring her screams for help when she had kidney stones. How the hell am I supposed to help anyways? But by the time I got to high school I turned to alcohol. I resented her and the negative atmosphere affected who I was as a person. I started to be cold and uncaring. Calculated. She started kicking me out every few months, telling me to find somewhere else to live by age 15. She sent me away to a different country for a year and tried to keep my passport, but I made it back to the US with the help of the embassy and my stepfather. She'd already left by that time and found some other dude. I came back senior year with no credits for the prior grade, which ended with me getting a GED. I spent most of the time I could with my best friend and started working bad jobs. I was terrible at saving as I had accumulated loads of bad habits while growing up, so it didn't make much difference. She eventually told me that if I went to college, I would always have a place to live until I finished. Cue my first 2 semesters at a 2-year college, I maintained a 3.7-ish GPA. My teachers loved me and it was my escape. Towards the end of my 2nd semester during finals, I came home late one night around 10 p.m. and my mother yanks the door open screaming in my face asking when I'll move out. I'm slightly drunk and decide to completely ignore her and walk to my room. If I opened my mouth, that day would be the day I blew up and cursed her out. I've rarely ever raised my voice at her because it never ended well. Now at this point I'm 19 and I've been doing school full-time with no savings. I'm also fairly fit and could easily take my mom at this point, never laid a hand on her or any woman. I hate violence. I get to my room, she rips my door open, and starts yelling. I say nothing and stare at her. She walks away and called the police on me saying she thought I'd murder her and my younger siblings. I don't know where the hell she got that idea from, as she's the one who's nearly killed me many times. I packed everything into a duffel bag and left 5 minutes afterwards. I failed all of my finals because I couldn't make it to my school. Things kinda spiraled and the next 2 to 3 years were me on and off homeless. I survived the best I could in a big city with no college degree and made a lot of bad choices due to my bad habits. Eventually I found a profitable hobby that gave me meaning, and through that, I started to work my way up. Got my own apartment, had a full-time job, and did my hobby on the side. I hadn't kept up contact with my mother at all, But my younger sister, who was old enough to have a phone, found me on social media, so I saw photos and such. She didn't have it anywhere near as bad, but she did get beaten occasionally. My mother reached out via email, all smiles, asking how I've been. Now guys, I've always been envious of the relationship most people have with their moms, so I gave her a chance and gave her a call. We talked for a few minutes and everything was civil and seemed like things would go okay, but then she asked me what I've been up to the last few years, and I told her honestly that I was homeless for a while and struggled a lot after what she did to me, but I worked my way out of it. She literally laughs. She laughed for a few seconds in a very condescending kinda chuckle and then said, "I never did a thing to you, so you don't know what abuse is. It's your own fault you were homeless. So how about yo?" But by that point I hung up. I was speechless and fuming. I don't know what abuse is? Okay bitch. I've spent too long letting you destroy my sanity. Now is the time. There was a few things my mother didn't know. 1, I knew for a fact that current well-paying job she had was gotten on lies, as she never got her college degree and lied about it on her resume. 2, I had access to all of her email accounts and cloud storage accounts, since I was the one that set them up when I was younger and she never changes her passwords. Lastly, she definitely wasn't aware that from 13 years old and on to the last time she hit me, I took photos of all my bruises, marks, wounds and bloody noses, saving them to my computer and then Google Drive. On top of that, my little sister had been sending me photos via social media of the bruises she got from my mom. The first thing I did was compile all of those photos and videos into one folder. I then reached out to CPS in my city and explained that my siblings were being abused, how I was abused in the past, and that I had mountains of proof. Since I've called the cops on my mother before and the thing that happened with my older sister, there was immediately a home visit. They arrived almost a day later with the police, and coincidentally my mother was literally in the process of beating my younger sister when they were knocking. Cue an emergency removal of all my siblings from the house and my mother getting arrested, though she was released hours later. I was getting a day-to-day play-by-play because my mother's best friend is a blabbermouth, and everything my mother said she told her son, who relayed it to me without either of their knowledge. I sent CPS all the evidence and there's a legit case against my mother now. The next day I emailed and then called up her job to inform them that she had lied about having a very necessary college degree, as well current events in her life, which sparked a background check. She was fired days later. Say adios to $75K and a blacklist in the only industry you know how to work. I then spitefully deleted every cloud account and email address I ever made for her, which was all of them, which I'm sure will make keeping up with a lot bills nearly impossible. I then anonymously reported her to the IRS because of the tax fraud she committed for years by claiming people's children that weren't hers, with a lot of detailed information since I lived with her while she did it. So now, my mother lost all her kids and her job. I'm meeting with a caseworker from CPS next week to talk more about what happens moving forward, but I do know they're not going back. I don't know how she's gonna pay her mortgage now and survive. I'm sure she's gonna get a call from the IRS who'll be looking for a few $1,000s she owes them. She also has to go back to court in a few months, not exactly sure what she was charged with, but I'll update when I find out how everything turns out. She isn't aware I'm the cause of any of this. I plan on keeping tabs on her and waiting until it seems like she's close to death before I tell her it was all me, and I peed in her Lipton. There will be an update to this story at the end of the video. Taking down Bridezilla. I went to a sort of pre-bachelorette party for a sorority sister who I hadn't seen in a while and who turned out to be a complete Bridezilla witch. One of our other friends from college is pregnant from a one-night stand and does not know who the father is but is keeping the baby. Bridezilla figured out that she is going to be about 8 months pregnant at the wedding and wouldn't let her be a bridesmaid. She was really nasty and called her a tramp and said she should have gotten an abortion. The girl got really upset and left. Almost everybody else did too. One of the girls out partying with us is a nurse practitioner. She invited the remaining girls back to her apartment. I don't know what she gave Bridezilla, but she was out cold really fast. That's where it got really weird. I had had way too much to drink and crashed on the couch when the other girls left. I woke up a couple of hours later looking for the bathroom, and I walked in on the nurse and Bridezilla. Bridezilla was still out cold, but the nurse had her naked from the waist down and on the bed with a bunch of pillows under her and her legs spread like she was giving her a gyno exam. I then saw her hold something up and laugh, and I realized what she had just done. She had removed Bridezilla's intrauterine contraceptive device. I got really upset at first and started yelling at her that she was a psycho, so she just flushed it down the toilet and reminded me that if I said anything Bridezilla would probably have both of us arrested. I realized she was right, of course. And it didn't help, I was really drunk. When she saw I was backing down, she laughed and explained that her IUD was the copper kind with no hormones to stay behind in her body to prevent ovulating, and that with any luck Bridezilla would be showing a baby bump by her wedding day. At first I was going to keep my mouth shut, but I had second thoughts and felt guilty and tried to contact Bridezilla later to warn her somehow, but she wouldn't return my calls and texted me that she was angry at me for inviting our pregnant friend out that night. She texted some really nasty things about her. So I decided Bridezilla really deserved what was coming to her. But I didn't want to bring an unwanted baby into the world. I spread a rumor that she had gotten really drunk that night and told us she was getting her IUD removed because she wanted to make sure her fiancé was on the hook with a baby, just in case he got cold feet before the wedding. Word got back to him, and he insisted on checking for her strings himself and then dragging her to the walk-in clinic when he couldn't feel them. By the end of her exam the wedding was off. Word is she just got a D&C. So not only did we get revenge on her for being a total witch, we also saved a nice guy from a bad marriage. I screwed his brains out last weekend. He deserved it, and so did she. I emailed a racist Napster troll a map to his home. This was back when Napster was the main source of MP3s. Those born before 1990 are probably familiar with it. For those who aren't, you would actually download files directly from another user, important later in the story, and there was a chat feature that would let you message the people you're downloading from. Right away this particular user who told me that he was in the Czech Republic starts bashing my county, Canada, and spewing out vile racist trads. I call him on it and he starts telling me that he is some elite computer hacker and threatens to destroy my computer. He also claimed that he knew gang members in Canada and that he'd send them to my home. So here's where the direct connection part is relevant. There's a DOS prompt command, again those born before 1990 are probably familiar with DOS, called netstat, and it shows you all of the IP addresses of computers you're connected to. So I was able to find from his IP address that he was using a computer network in a particular university in the Czech Republic. With this info I googled his Napster username at that university and would you believe it? His actual physical address with a map and his university email address came up on an online university student profile. I guess he used the same username for his university email and his Napster account. So of course I emailed him the map to his house, or dorm, from a burner email and told him over the Napster chat client to check his email. That was the last racist rant I received. Guy quit his job thinking he became rich. I work for a construction company and we do remodeling on homes. We have a rule here that we get to keep anything we find hidden behind the walls. We hired this guy, we really needed a worker badly, who was a total a-hole from day one. I've been working for this company for 5 years and this guy has only been doing construction for 1 year after he got fired from his accounting job for getting a DUI. Anyways, he would always make fun of my clothes and my accent, and one day he went too far by telling my boss about my private Instagram account pics. He got on my phone and looked through my Instagram page and showed my boss pictures of me smoking weed. Little did he know that my boss is my friend from 8 years when we used to smoke together before we both quit. I was so mad that he violated my privacy that I made a plan to F him over. He was the kind of guy who would always come in late and complain that trains or traffic is why he was always late. One day I overheard him saying that if he won the lottery he would quit this job for not getting the respect he deserves. You have to earn your respect here. One day I bought some fake gold coins online and I put them in a metal box I found at the antique store and waited for a chance to hide it in a wall. Luckily I did not have to wait long. The day he found the coins it seemed like it was his best day ever. First thing he did when he opened the box, he called my boss a loser, and he quit immediately on the spot. He said, "F this place. I'm rich." Little did he know that was the best day of my life. After he quit my boss told us that he was going to fire him anyways for always showing up late. I wish I could see the look on his face when he finds out the gold coins are fake. Best $40 I spent in my life. Cheat on me, no problem, I left your sister then. So this happened a bit over 3 years ago. My then girlfriend and me decided to move in together and bought a house. The next step was having kids, since we were already together for quite some time and were stable both in financial aspect and job aspect. And of course because we loved each other immensely. She got pregnant quite fast and we couldn't be happier at first. Then I decided, since we have our own house, a little kid on the way and no problems apart from the occasional argument in every relationship, that it would be a good idea to ask her to marry me. Can't ask without a ring, of course, so I asked at my work for extra shifts and a couple of extra weekend shifts since those pay better. The drawback on this was that I was absent from home a lot more and that frustrated her. I couldn't tell her the reason why since I wanted to surprise her. Over the course of a couple of weeks, we started to get in more and more fights, verbally, since I would never hit a woman, of course. She grew more and more distant while I was still working my butt off to buy a nice engagement ring. That's when I started to get a gut feeling something was wrong. This grew even more when she put a password on her phone out of the blue and wouldn't share it with me. I ignore my gut since I trusted her with my life and it was her phone. She can do with it what she wants. My gut feeling never really disappeared and I soon learned why. Not lying after she left her phone open while she went off to take a bath. Then she received a message from a co-worker up here that was quite explicit. I started scrolling up and I found nudes, sexual messages, date meetings and the works. My world shattered. Now every normal guy probably would have confronted her instantly. Not me, since I was in shock and disbelief, especially since she was pregnant with my child. Once it sank in for a bit, I decided that I wanted revenge. Most people that desire revenge in these situations don't really care with whom they take revenge. I, however, cared. Her younger sister stayed quite often for a sleepover at our place to help in the household when I was working, and she was tired due to her pregnancy. Since I knew her sister for as long as I've known my girlfriend, I knew what buttons to press to calmly seduce her. This worked quite well and I made sure to not be too abrupt, but a bit at a time, so it wouldn't seem so weird. I made quite some good progress with her and faster than I expected as well. A couple of weeks after I started doing this, my girlfriend's sister stayed for another sleepover. And this was my chance, since I was also at home, albeit a bit later, but they were both still awake. Then I heard the magic words from my girlfriend that she was going to bed and sleep. Her sister and I decided to stay up for a bit longer and finish watching a movie. A bit later, when I was sure she was sleeping, I crawled a bit closer to her sister and started to flirt more and more with her. She responded in kind. This was where I thought it's now or never. I started caressing her and she let me go on even more. Then I finally undressed her and we had intercourse while her sister and my girlfriend was sleeping upstairs. At first I felt a bit guilty and wanted to confess everything, but her sister and my rage against her convinced me otherwise. A couple of months later she came clean with what she had done to me, and I also revealed a part of the truth and that I already knew what she had done. I didn't tell her it was her sister I slept with, since her sister wanted to play the part of the good and kind little sister. She still plays this part to this day. And to top it all off, I decided to show her the ring I bought to ask her to marry me with. Needless to say, I didn't want to marry her anymore and ended up returning the ring to the jeweler. The fact that I could do something like this out of sheer revenge shattered her, and now she knows the same pain I felt when she cheated on me. Also, that sisterly bond is also torn because of this. She doesn't know the exact reason why, but we do. I know that I'm an a-hole for doing this with her sister, but her sister isn't free of guilt either. She was as guilty as I am. There are times I regret what I've done, but that passes quite fast. Contact with her sister is sometimes quite awkward as well, since we both still remember what we did, and weirdly enough, there are still times when there's a sexual tension around us. Small edit: after we came clean to each other about the cheating part, we decided to work on the problems that caused this to happen. And we decided to start anew with a clean slate, especially since we had a kid together. We are still together to this day. Destroy my childhood, ruin my chance at college, and laugh when I said I was homeless? I'll ruin your life. Update: I swallowed my pride and moved into a homeless shelter in my city specifically for people with jobs and a savings. I'll be able to continue saving while I work on bettering myself as a person. I created an action plan and mapped out all my goals and how I want to achieve them. Up until recently, I wasn't even planning on being alive. Sorry if that's too dark. I honestly always had these thoughts, wishing my mother would have finished the job with me and made life easier. But as of late, I'm becoming more and more curious of what I'm capable of if I gave myself the chance. I've been able to visit my younger siblings and have gotten to know my little sister a bit better because of the experience. I feel like a horrible person for admitting I still feel nothing for them or really anyone, but I won't let my feelings get in the way of the promise I made to myself or them. I've also only drank 3 times in the last 4 months compared to every other day in the past, which isn't great but it's a change. My younger siblings are still with CPS, but I can't go into detail. My mother was supposed to go to a hearing to get them back but things got complicated. My mother's best friend's son, who I've known 8 years, does his best to relay all the crap my mother tells her while they talk on the phone all day. Things had gotten worse for her. She hasn't been keeping up with her mortgage payments. Her fiancé, my youngest sibling's dad, is no longer her fiancé anymore and is trying to file for custody. I heard she was a wreck then went ghost but it didn't make me feel better. There weren't supposed to be any winners. Honestly, I wasn't even going to update. I initially just wanted to tell someone for once but one thing changed my mind. Something I was not expecting months after I set this all in motion. A phone call from my mother. In the past seeing her calls, even after moving out, would set me on edge but that hasn't been the case lately. It was just another thing that happened. Just another event. Meaningless but at the same time. She always had my number but never reached out. Even when things first started went downhill, I doubt she even gave me a second thought. But I'm sure you're all curious to know what was said. My mother is gone. A few weeks after my post, the state time and brought felony charges up against her. She left the country shortly after and went to her home country in South America. I have no idea how she was even allowed to leave but they didn't take her passport. She avoided specifics on that part. She mentioned staying with a family friend temporarily and tried to frame it as a short vacation. She didn't even start off with a hello. She started the conversation by ordering me to go somewhere quiet before launching into a sob story about how things have been going for her. This is after months of no contact. After laughing at me for being homeless and denying she ever abused me months ago. Just yammering away like it was nothing but I let her talk. It was surreal. I felt so cold just listening to her talk. It was like talking to a stranger. She mentions losing out on so much money and how she doesn't know how all it happened and then finally she hits the topic du jour. Cue her bringing up my little sister and the night of the emergency removal. She starts complaining about how she misses my little sister and brothers, mentions something about how it messes up tax season. And then she had the audacity to start trying to convince me that I should go talk to the caseworkers for her to back up her claim that she never abused them or me and I should know that. She said that to me. After everything. Of all people. 9 minutes into the conversation. Like nothing ever happened. But it wasn't anything new. Of course I cut her off but at that point my mind was already made up. I asked her if she remembered when I used to make iced tea for her all those years. She was a little thrown off but said yes. I paused for a few seconds before slowly telling her in detail about all the ways I sabotaged her Lipton iced tea. She tried to interrupt me once but I didn't stop talking. I told her about how I'd always put too much sugar and she'd never taste it and keep drinking more, which was why I always insisted. There was just silence on the phone but I know she was listening. I told her waiting until after dinner when I got home from school to shower so I could rub her spoons between my butt cheeks for maximum damage and how I'd mix it into her food to mask it. At this point I'm not even sure she's listening anymore but I'm still describing specific days I remember doing it that I know she would remember. She finally loudly interrupts me screaming at me disgusting evil things. She cursed me the way she used to back in the days when she'd be standing over me with an extension cord beating the skin off of me when I was younger. She's blaming me for ruining her life and how she wished she had a better child, all without knowing that I directly caused the destruction of her current life though she's speaking about the past. I just let her waste her breath. She couldn't touch me or my siblings. It only lasted a few seconds. Now I remember spending years daydreaming of all things I'd say to my mother if I had the chance, but I just bottled it up with all my other baggage and kept trying to exist. A lot of people from my original post also gave me some ideas. When she finally shut her mouth I calmly told her, look mom, you don't know what abuse is and honestly it's your own fault this is all happening to you. Also, my bad for pissing in your iced tea. Then I just hung up the phone and blocked her number. That was the last day I drank. I haven't talked to her since. I'm not sure she's aware, or maybe she is, how bad of an idea it was to leave the country with all this going down, even if it was for a few weeks. At this point I'm done with her. I don't want an apology. I just want to move forward and be a better person. I know that's hard to believe after everything I just told you but it's the truth. I try my best to put as much positivity into the world and share it with the people around me as much as possible. But F her. I don't know if she knows it was me but I didn't tell her. I'm sure she can guess though if she really tried. Anyways, that's my revenge. It's still actively messing her life up, but I'm not taking any active part in it. I wish it wasn't like this. I wish I had a real family that loved me and I knew how to love back the right way. I wish I had a real relationship with my mother and none of those things happened. I wish I could have turned out like one of the happy people in the world, but I can spend all day wishing. Sorry for the super long post. This is my last update. Wish me luck next year. Find a related confession in the video linked in the description.